So Canon isn't the only name that's dropping news this week. We've got folks like Nikon, Kodak, and Sony with huge news. So let's just jump in as the sun sets. So Kodak has officially unveiled two new 35mm color negative films, the Kodacolor 100 and the Kodacolor 200, and they're already in stock at retailers. Now, a new Kodak color film in 2025 is a story on its own, but the bigger deal is who's selling it and why that matters. So Kodacolor 100 and 200 are 135 format rolls, priced around $9 for 36 exposures, with availability filtering through retailers, including Unique Photo, B&H, Cinestill, and Blue Moon Camera and Machine. Kodak describes the Kodacolor 100 as a low-speed, daylight-balanced film with fine grain, saturated colors, high sharpness, wide exposure latitude, and consistent color reproduction, aimed at general photographic situations like landscapes, portraits, and travel. Kodacolor 200 shares most of those traits, offering a bit more flexibility where light is limited, though it's a relatively low-speed stock. It's still 200. Now, what makes this launch notable is the business shift here. Eastman Kodak, not Kodak Alaris, is selling these two films directly to distributors for the first time in over a decade. Kodak says it's doing this to increase supply and create greater stability in a market where prices have fluctuated. The company characterizes the 100 and 200 as sub-brands of existing Kodak films, emphasizing the same high quality rather than touting an all-new emulsion. Now, this move lands alongside Kodak's recent and renewed investments in film and film-adjacent products. They revived Ektachrome 100D reverse film in 2018, as well as the Kodak Super 8 motion picture camera in 2024, positioning these launches as part of a longer-term commitment to film's general health. Unique Photo calls Kodacolor's unique colored tone as true to life without excessive saturation, positioning it as a more natural option than, say, Kodak Gold 200, and a less punchy alternative than Ektar 100. In early impressions, Peter Pixel's editor-in-chief, Jaron Schneider, notes that samples show less saturation than Ektar, a tendency towards warmer, slightly green tonality, and a softer overall look to the tones with good rendering. There's also context here around Kodak's business landscape, right? Eastman Kodak and Kodak Alaris became separate entities in 2013, with Alaris handling distribution of Kodak branded still photo films, while Eastman continued to manufacture them. With Kodacolor 100 and 200, Eastman Kodak is taking back direct distribution of these specific films. Coverage also points out that the company recently addressed a pension settlement to strengthen its balance sheet. We talked about that here on the channel. And for photographers, the bottom line is availability today. This is a competitive sub $10 price point for 36 exposures and a color palette that aims for natural, neutral, consistent results. So if you've been waiting for a fresh Kodak option with a subtler palette than something like Ektar, this looks relatively promising. So I'm curious where you'd put Kodacolor 100 or 200, street, portrait, travel, landscapes. Let me know what you think down below. Next, let's switch to talking about Nikon and their latest play in the cinema space. Now, according to Nikon rumors, Nikon used IBC 2025 to show more details on the Nikon ZR. That's their under $2,200 compact cinema camera built in collaboration with Red, who they bought last year, or 2 years ago, designed to democratize pro workflows. And the basics are this: it's a compact body with Red color science, it's got 15 stops of dynamic range, and it's not really what people expected as the next move from Nikon. And Nikon is positioning the ZR for professional filmmakers as well as younger video creators, aiming to cover a wide range of use cases from creator rigs to Red B and C camera rolls. And in addition to some of the flexibility of codecs that it's offering with its R3D or Red 3D NE, Nikon highlights the flexible post options with NRAW as well as ProRes RAW, including high compression modes for longer takes, and the fact that we now have support in Premiere Pro, beta at least, for NRAW. And the ZR uses a semi-stacked sensor that we get out of the Z6 III. And one of the features that has been touted on this camera is its 4-inch 16:10 display for monitoring, meaning that you don't necessarily have to throw a monitor on it. But specifically, Nikon discussed how the ZR differed from past efforts, especially lessons that they've learned from previous eras, saying that the ZR was developed with Red by listening to cinema customers. And strategically, Nikon believes that the ZR is capable enough to span two lines in one, approachable for independent creators, but viable as a second camera on red sets, reducing the need for separate models between those different use cases. And the pitch centers on compatibility, flexibility, and price. Nikon's view is that these Kodak options, like R3D and NRAW and ProRes RAW for workflow compatibility within the red environment, makes it viable for pro pipelines, in addition to the ProRes RAW making it valuable for Mac-based setups. So it's very interesting to hear Nikon's position on this camera, because if they can keep the thermal steady without a fan, which we're hearing amazing news about, it's a compelling bridge between creator kits and true cinema workflows. But there's actually more to talk about when it comes to the ZR, as it's rumored that Nikon's going to be adding direct external SSD recording via the USB port in firmware as an update coming soon. Now, if that lands, it would be a first for Nikon Z series cameras, and in my opinion, it should become table stakes for any professional level camera, stills or video. Now, the current rumor points to post-launch firmware that's going to enable the SSD recording over USB, with the ZR shipping date currently noted as October 20th. Now, for high-speed video, Nikon workflows lean heavily on external video recorders over HDMI, like the Atomos Ninja 5. So if Nikon is able to deliver this firmware, it could simplify long-form, data rate-heavy work without relying on external HDMI recorders. So we'll watch for official information and timing, and I'll let you know once we hear more. But next, we've got some new glass from Sony for full-frame shooters. So Sony has announced the FE 100mm f2.8 Macro GM-OSS, a G Master macro lens with up to 1.4 magnification, advanced stabilization, and arriving in November just before Christmas for about $1,499. And this lens pushes past the traditional 1:1 macro with a G Master build and control suite. Now, this lens has a bright f2.8 aperture, achieves 1.4 magnification natively. With an optional 2x teleconverter, it can reach up to 2.8 magnification, giving macro shooters substantial reach while maintaining a comfortable working distance, useful for subjects that are hard to approach or that can create unwanted reflections. Autofocus on this lens is driven by 4 XD linear motors for fast, precise, and quiet performance. Sony cites AF performance up to 1.9 times faster than previous models, and the lens supports up to 120 frame per second shooting. Now, the optical design includes 2 XA elements and 2 ED glass elements to maintain high resolution across the frame and reduce chromatic and other types of aberration. It has an 11 blade circular aperture and is designed to produce smooth ball bokeh with carefully controlled spherical aberration for that G Master balance of sharpness and background blur. Now, stabilization is integrated and tunes for macro shooting, compensating for shift shake, angular shake, and front and back shake to help steady-handed close-ups. It also has a full-time DMF switch that enables instant manual override even in autofocus, and a focus mode switch for quick AF/MF changes. It also has a sliding focus ring that engages full manual focus with link distance and magnification scales. There's also a dedicated aperture ring, and the lens only weighs 646 grams. For macro specialists and portrait shooters like me, who like more than the 1:1, this 100mm G Master looks like a versatile, modern tool with stabilization, fine control, great performance, low weight, and honestly, a pretty decent price. But this next one is rather interesting as it's starting to get kind of dark here. Sony also announced a very different kind of sensor. So Sony now has an IMX927. This is a 105 megapixel global shutter sensor capable of 100 frames per second at full resolution, designed primarily for industrial use. So it's not necessarily aimed at your next camera purchase, but it kind of indicates and signals where the technology is heading. So the IMX927 measures about 2.5 inches diagonally, making it significantly larger than a traditional stills camera with a 35mm full-frame sensor. It's built with a back-illuminated design that enhances low light performance, and it's described as having night vision tricks beyond what a 2.74 micrometer pixel would normally allow. The sensor actually supports one-shot HDR, allowing it to capture both the bright and dark areas in a single frame. The capability that's particularly useful here is for high contrast reflective subjects like metals on a conveyor belt. Again, think industrial. And to move that much data, it actually has a 100 gigabit interface. That's on the sensor, because remember, it is a stacked backside illuminated sensor. Now, here's the trick. It's not designed for photographers. The coverage notes that the potential relevance for pro imaging is pretty low. There's also mention of a related monochrome version, which is pretty common also in these industrial applications. So in today's market context, we've seen global shutters arrive in consumer gear like Sony's A9 III and medium format bodies like the Hasselblad X2D. But this new sensor combines both a global shutter and very high resolution, while its industrial orientation puts it outside current stills cameras. The capabilities underscore what could influence future high resolution or at least medium format designs, if not in a 35mm full frame. So the key takeaway here is capability. It's 105 megapixels, it's a global shutter, it's 100 frames per second, it's one-shot HDR, and it is a massive data pipeline. Now, even if it never lands in a stills camera, the tech trajectory is pretty clear and it's worth keeping on the radar. And if you want to hear more about that, go ahead and hit subscribe and like. If you want to support what I'm doing here, consider becoming a channel member. It's $1. I've also got links down below to all the gear that I use. Those are affiliate links, so they do help also to support the channel. But the easiest and cheapest way to support the channel is just hit like and subscribe. That's always free, and it goes a long way to help me grow here on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.